Hey humans, I'm Harley Salbacka.
And I'm Anthony Mauro.
And today we have the pleasure of speaking with a man who has heavily influenced more than one generation of reader and horror fans, R.L. Stine.
The monster you encounter isn't the one you thought it'd be.
So you might be familiar with the classic tale of a mad scientist hell-bent on creating life. But what these two demented brothers have created is something else entirely. Get ready for a darker, more gruesome, and even more terrifying series for horror fans who are ready to face their fears in Stuff of Nightmares, which is the book we're talking about because it's out now. It's out now, and we're very excited.
It's out in the book market.
Before we go any further, I have to thank everybody because this week's and thanks to all the readers and everyone at Boom, because Stuff of Nightmares, which came out this week, is the #1 graphic novel at Amazon. So that's a thrill. I'm so happy about that and so grateful to everyone.
That is amazing. Oh, that makes me really, really happy too, because I was very excited when I read this book. I was on the edge of my seat the whole time. So the fact that all of our awesome sales and marketing talent here at Boom, including Anthony and myself and our producer and everyone at Boom, help make that happen with your amazing story makes me really, really excited.
Yeah, I'm so happy about that. It's a gruesome book, but people seem to like that stuff.
It is very gruesome.
Yeah, it is. I grew up as a huge Goosebumps fan as a kid. Like that series absolutely colored the books I enjoyed reading as an adult. And so getting to read Stuff of Nightmares as like growing up as a Goosebumps fan, I'm like, oh, this is very different. This is much more violent and brutal.
No one ever dies in Goosebumps.
No.
Nope.
Even if you're a ghost, you died 100 years ago.
Yeah.
That's a good point. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have. Well, I did an early Goosebumps book called The Girl Who Cried Monster. It's about a girl who thinks her librarian is a monster. He knows it. She's watching him in the stacks, and she knows he's a monster, but nobody believes her. And in the original version of this book, the librarian eats a kid. And and my editor thought, maybe not. Maybe we shouldn't eat a kid in Goosebumps. So it's the only time I ever really had to change. What I did was I put a big bowl of live turtles on the librarian's desk. And every once in a while, he reaches over and he eats a live turtle instead of a kid. Turtles are a lot crunchier.
Sure.
So it's better.
Yeah.
But, that's the only time we ever came close to offing a kid in Goosebumps.
So that was a conscious choice then on your part to make horror for kids, but not, really have the mortality aspect of it be so.
I'm not really interested in terrifying kids.
Right.
Not really, but
fair enough.
That's really what I'm about.
That's a good way to dovetail into this question. How does it feel to be the horror master for middle grade and beyond?
It's a good job. Somebody has to scare them, right?
Sure.
It's a very good job. And I always say I get like awards for scaring kids.
Oh my gosh.
It's pretty amazing, right?
It is.
They pay me to scare kids.
I never thought about it like that, but yes.
It's not quite true, but to me, horror is funny. Horror makes me laugh.
Sure.
I never, people come up to me and they say, after I read your book, I had to leave all the lights on. I locked the doors. I couldn't sleep. I've never had that feeling. There's something missing in my brain, I think. I've never had that. No, there's never had that feeling of being scared after reading a book or while reading, or even at a scary movie.
Wow.
If you watch it, I'll be at a movie and the shark will come up and start chewing up the teenagers and I'll be the one in the theater laughing.
That's so fascinating. I don't think I've ever had someone who does horror, especially someone who is like you, who is famous for doing horror, be like, yeah, it's very humorous to me.
Well,
That stinks me.
I'm not really into horror.
Could have fooled me.
A lot about what horror I've read lately, or I'm not really into it. I mean, see, I was always funny. I only cared about being funny. And I wrote maybe 100 joke books for kids. I was Jovial Bob Stine. And I did a humor magazine for kids called Bananas for 10 years.
Oh my gosh, I remember that magazine.
Yeah.
You remember Dynamite magazine?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my wife's magazine. Jane did 100 issues of Dynamite.
What?
That's incredible.
It was the biggest kids magazine in the country at the time. It was huge. Her magazine was so big they let me do one out of kindness, and I got to do Bananas for a while.
Speaking of Goosebumps, let's talk about Fear Street and Goosebumps for a little bit. Fear Street obviously adapted into a 3-part Netflix movie the past couple of years.
Yeah, a slasher film.
Yeah.
So couldn't believe that. I was shocked. Hey, people love to see teenagers get killed, but I'm hoping for a few more of those Fear Street movies on Netflix. We were trying to figure out who should play me in the Goosebumps movie. And then a whole bunch of people on Twitter said, well, you should play yourself. Who knows you better than you? You should play yourself in the Goosebumps movie. And I went to my wife, Jane, and this is a brutal line, by the way. And I said, a lot of people think I should play myself in the movie. And she said, you're too old to play yourself.
I'm sorry. You're too old to be you.
Talk about one-sentence horror stories.
We all are. Everyone I know is too old to be them. Jack was great. He's a wonderful person.
I love to hear that.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun together.
I love that because
and he's a good dad too.
Do you still keep in contact with him?
Yeah, he actually did the audio book for a picture book that I did with Mark.
Oh, that's fun.
Won an Audie Award for it.
That's incredible.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And he came
which book?
Which one was it? A Little Shop of Monsters.
Okay.
Oh,
cool.
Yeah.
With Mark Brown. Do you know Arthur the Aardvark?
Yes. You were on that show. You were on that show too.
I mean, it was once, yeah. But Mark and I, we do picture books together. And he's amazing, Mark. He's an incredible talent. We have a monster joke book coming out this summer, for little kids called Why Did the Monster Cross the Road? It's a really nice little book.
That's really cute.
Like someone on the other side. And I got a copy of it and I sat my grandkids down. But Dylan is 9 and Mia is 3. I said, look, and I dedicated it to them. I said, look, my new picture book, Why Monster? And I sat them down. I read it to them. They didn't crack a smile. Sat there, I think just to be mean, I think. I don't get it. I said, you're 9 years old. What do you mean? You don't get jokes? You're 9. My son's claim to fame, talking about him, was that he never read a Goosebumps book. He never read one. Isn't that horrible?
Rude. So rude.
Wears it like a badge of honor, huh?
Yeah. I think if you're an author, your kid's not going to read you. It's a normal, natural way to separate from your parent and make your parent nuts. Make him nuts. I knew Kurt Vonnegut's daughter.
Oh.
It's a huge Lily Vonnegut. She was a huge Goosebumps fan. She was like 12, 13. She wouldn't read her father for anything. He was Kurt Vonnegut. She wouldn't read him.
I love his stuff. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't even imagine.
I got to know him a little bit thanks to Lily.
I now want to find out if Cormac McCarthy's children read any of Cormac McCarthy's books.
Question.
Blood Meridian, what's that? We're not going to read that.
So I know that you said you read a lot of the old EC comics and Tales from the Crypt, things like that, which was
very influential.
Yeah. And that was pre the whole Comics Code Authority. So what was it about those comics that drew you in when you were a kid? Well,
they were gruesome, bloody, horrible. So one story I remember where this butcher runs out of meat, so he shoves someone through the meat grinder. It's that kind of thing. Yeah, they were really, awful. And, I'm 10, 11 years old and loved it, just loved it. And the art was so wonderful. All these great artists who, just no one like them now. There's just no one like
That's true.
them. They were incredible. And they all had funny twist endings. They were all funny.
They all were kind of funny, actually.
That is true. As like standalone stories, I can really see where like that part of it like bled into Goosebumps a lot, because it really was like ironic, funny kind of twist endings based on like who they were as people throughout the story.
Yeah, right. No, it's really true. I wasn't allowed. One day I bought a couple of them and brought them home, and my mom stopped me at the door. She said, "You can't have these. Sorry, you can't bring these in the house." I said, "Why? What do you mean?" She said, "It's trash. That's trash. You can't have it." So my barber shop, this is actually a true story. A lot of them aren't, but this is a true story. My barber shop had a big stack of these comics, right? And I used to go every Saturday morning and get a haircut so I could read the EC comic. I had less hair then than I do now.
Yeah, because you were a kid at like a really kind of pivotal time in comics history, because
in the 50s.
Yeah, because Seduction of the Innocent came out in 1954, which
basically I was a kid.
Yeah,
I didn't know anything about that. I just knew that the horror comics weren't as good. Suddenly they weren't as good, and they changed the titles. They became crime suspense stories.
Yeah.
Stories.
Sure. Right.
That's all I knew, but I didn't know what was going on or why. I have a book coming out, middle grade novel in October called Slime Doesn't Pay. Good title, right?
Great title.
It's got a pretty gruesome cover. It's got a boy who's half boy, half monster on the cover with blue slime coming down his face. And a couple editors said to me, "That's too scary for 8 and 9-year-olds. That cover's too scary for them." So, of course, I showed it to Dylan, who's 9, right? And you know what he said. "Not scary enough."
Sure.
Right?
I also love kids and their transparency and honesty.
I was just going to say my partner's 9-year-old is very, very blunt with her opinions. And similarly is just completely unimpressed with what I do as a career, despite her reading Goosebumps, despite her loving the Goosebumps movie, despite her loving Lumberjanes, which is another series we publish here at Boom. It's just like, I work with all these people. Like, I know these people. Like, this is part of my job. And she's just like, so? I'm like, cool. This is great conversation. Thank you. Thank you for just bringing me back down to earth. Well, Bob, you have, like we've been talking about, your new book coming out here at Boom with us called Stuff of Nightmares, which is a retelling of the horror classic Frankenstein, and is your first, at least, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it's your first content directed specifically at adults.
Yes, it is. I've done adult novels. Right. It's the first comic book series I did for adults.
Why the change in audience?
Well, look, let's say you 92 when Goosebumps started. Right. Let's say you were 10 years old when Goosebumps started. How old would you be today?
Mid-30s.
You're pretty young, too. I mean, I have older readers than you.
Sure.
I had older readers. Fear Street started in 89. If you were 10 in 89, you'd be dead today. Right? That's why I have dead readers. It's a shame. But no, they grew up. They grew up. Now, it's worked out for comic books. As I say, I'm so thrilled that Stuff of Nightmares is doing so well. But on Twitter, I'm on Twitter all the time, and people say, why don't you write a book for us? We loved you when we were kids. Now we're grown up. Why don't you write an adult horror novel? So I listened to them, and I did. Aww. And I wrote this book, Red Rain, for adult horror. Where'd they go? They all disappeared. It was a horrible flop.
This call to action, everybody, go read Bob's adult novel. Go check it out.
They don't want it.
Well, now me and Anthony have to read it. So now we have to find a copy and we both need to read it, Anthony.
So anyway, I'm thrilled about Stuff of Nightmares. And it was fun, being unleashed, as it were, to write for adults and to be more violent. Yeah, you want the honest truth?
Yes.
I wouldn't have done it if it wasn't for the Fear Street movies.
Really?
Yeah, the Fear Street movies were, I've never done anything R-rated before. Even my life isn't R-rated. Never had nothing R-rated. And then here are these 3 Fear Street movies come on Netflix, and they're slashers, 20 kids getting slashed, and it's, brutal R-rated films. And they were all number 1 on Netflix.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh man, am I in trouble? I'm going to hear from parents. I'm going to hear a complaint. Not one. So after that, I thought, well, I can loosen up a bit. Obviously, I'm not going to get in big trouble if I do something for grown-ups.
With Stuff of Nightmares in particular, what drew you to the Frankenstein story?
Well, it was an obvious start. I mean, it started with Frankenstein. It went pretty far afield.
Sure.
Pretty far away. The original idea was to take classic horror films and do my versions of them.
Sure.
But the story, ran away with itself.
Stories tend to do that, yeah.
Got weird. I just finished the next one. We have one coming out next summer, next fall. I just finished it.
Ooh, teasing some new stuff.
Yeah, longer. It's a 48-page one.
That's incredible.
Yeah. It's called Into the Murderverse.
I love that.
You are great at titles. Can I just say you have...
Thank you. That's my main talent. No, it is. My main talent is titles. And every book I do starts with the title.
I was about to ask that. So you do the title first and then you write a story for it.
Then I get an idea from the title. Sometimes I'll have an idea and I can't think of a good title. And I throw out the idea.
That's amazing.
I've done every story a human can do, right?
Sure.
There's nothing left. So I don't try to think of ideas now. I only think of titles. That's all I do is think of titles.
Fair enough.
Here's my best title, I think. I have this series of hardcover short story books. There's a new one coming out this summer, 10 new short stories. And the book's called Stine Tinglers.
That's really good.
Oh.
That is really good.
That is so good.
I think they bought it for the title.
Yeah, it's just really good branding. Like, I have to give it to you. It's just all your titles are phenomenal branding opportunities.
But Bob, thank you so much for your time today. This has just been an amazing pleasure talking comics and horror with you. Obviously, we now know about so many of your titles that are coming out. So that's really, really exciting. And everyone at home, make sure you pick up Stuff of Nightmares, which is now out anywhere where books are sold. And also, specifically, we're having that at Costco, which is a huge, huge deal because Costco does not take in a lot of books.
Yeah. Let's keep the number 1 spot on Amazon going. Let's just keep it going for another couple of weeks.
Oh, nice.
Months.
This was really fun. I really enjoyed talking with you. This was great.
We really enjoyed having you. This was like the best way to spend this morning.
Yes.
We'll do it again next week.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Tuesday, it'll be good.
Sounds great.
Perfect.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye, Bob.
Bye, Bob.
Hey, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us on this really fun episode of Boom Direct. Don't forget to catch the full-length episodes in podcast form anywhere you get your podcasts, including the uncut full-length interview we just did with renowned author R.L. Stine. And if you want to stay up to date on all the cool things we have coming down the pipeline for Boom Direct, remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Smash that like button and follow our podcast and follow Boom Studios on all social media.
Remember, comics are for everyone. I'm Harley Salbacka.
And I'm Anthony Mauro.
And this is Boom Direct.
Boom Direct.
Oh, that was bad.
Nailed it.
Nailed it so good. That was beautiful. I'm going to stop recording now.